Good morning, students. In the previous class, we have seen how Laura and Gonzalo got reconciled to each other. A pinch of snuff offered by Gonzalo to Laura made her change her attitude towards him, and later both of them started discussing poetry. And earlier Laura was making a lot of sarcastic comments about Gonzalo and his actions, but once the friendly conversation started, she started showing sympathy to the way he was reading. They found that they have got common interests. Both of them like poetry, both of them discuss Campoamor and some other poets as well. And while discussing Campoamor, the city Valencia was mentioned by Gonzalo, and this took Laura as well as Gonzalo to their old memories. And both of them were natives of the city Valencia. Gonzalo mentioned that he was a native of that place. Laura mentioned about Marisela, the villa where she was brought up. And then they discussed the story of the Silver Maiden and the gallant horseman. The Silver Maiden was actually Laura and the gallant horseman was Gonzalo. So both of them recognized each other. They understood that they were once upon a time lovers. They understood that they were in love with each other, but fate had separated them. Fate made them go in separate ways. Still, they were not ready to tell each other. Laura realized first that the old man sitting in front of her was Gonzalo. Gonzalo also realized that the woman in front of him was the same Silver Maiden, the perfect girl, the perfect woman, the most beautiful woman that he has met. But he did not ask if she was Laura. So both of them do not discuss. Now from here we are supposed to start. So the last dialogue that we discussed in the previous class was given by Gonzalo. He realizes, and in an aside he tells the audience, this is Laura. He recognizes this is Laura, the Silver Maiden in front of me. Now Laura in an aside tells us, why tell him? He does not suspect. No, why should I tell him that I am Laura? So she knows that the man in front of her is Gonzalo. She does not ask if he was Gonzalo because she wants him to ask her first. So she's just giving out her thought. Why tell him? Why should I tell him that I am Laura? Because he does not have any suspicion. He does not think that I am Laura. And now see, Gonzalo is saying, she is entirely innocent. Laura, she also does not know that Gonzalo, and she does not suspect. So better let me not ask her. And now Laura asked him, and was it you, by any chance, who advised your cousin to forget Laura? So they had discussed the duel. The duel happened at the beach in the morning. And in the duel, the merchant who was supposed to marry the Silver Maiden was wounded, and Gonzalo, or the gallant horseman, had to go away from that place. So she is asking him, see, you said that the gallant horseman was your cousin. Did you advise him to forget the Silver Maiden? Was it you? And she was just teasing him. She just wanted to test him. And Gonzalo, why? My cousin never forgot her. So Gonzalo says, please don't think in that way. My cousin could never forget the Silver Maiden. He could never forget his first love, and that is why he was able to recollect all his memories in a very, very perfect way. So he said, my cousin could never forget her. Laura, how do you account then for his conduct? Conduct means behavior. So now, what do you say? How do you explain his behavior afterwards? After the duel, he left. He had to hide somewhere, and he has left the place, Valencia. And after that, I have never seen him. The Silver Maiden could never see him. So where did he go? What happened to him? Why he did not come back to meet a Silver Maiden again? How do you describe this? Gonzalo, I will tell you. So now Gonzalo is going to tell her what happened to him afterwards. So we understand that After that night, they have not met. They have not heard from each other. She knows only up to one point. The merchant was wounded and he has gone away. And after that, she could never understand where this man was. And both of them had gone their different ways as well. So now Gonzalo is narrating the story. The young man took refuge in my house, fearful of the consequences of a duel with a person highly regarded in that locality. So you know what happened? The gallant horseman who was in love with Silver Maiden, he was my cousin. And after the duel, he was afraid because whom did he wound? He wounded a person from a good family, from a highly influential family. So naturally there would be consequences. He would be definitely taken by the authorities. So he was a little afraid. And what happened then? From my home, he went to Seville and then came to Madrid. So first he came to my house. My cousin came to my house. He was there in hiding. And then he understood that he should go away. So from there he went to another place, another town in Spain, Seville, and from there he has gone to Madrid. He wrote Laura many letters, some of them in verse. And you know, he could never forget her. So he kept on writing to her. He wrote lot many letters to her. And the letters were sent as well. And some of them were in verse. Verse means lines of a poem. So he wrote poetic letters to her. He could never live without her. So he kept on writing. But undoubtedly, they were intercepted by her parents. For she never answered at all. But I'm sure that those letters never reached her. They were intercepted. Intercepted means stopped. They were stopped by her parents. They were taken by her parents probably. Because how do I assume that? How did my cousin understand that the letters never reached her? Because she did not write a letter back. If she had received those letters, definitely she would have written him back. But probably the letters were taken by the parents and she did not get that. So no answer was received. Gonzalo then, in despair, believing his love lost to him forever, joined the army, went to Africa, and there, in a trench, met a glorious death, grasping the flag of Spain and whispering the name of his beloved Laura. And just to see how beautifully he has ended his version of the story, he says, you know what happened? When he did not receive any answers for those letters that he had sent her, he was dejected. He was in despair. He was so sad. And he did not know what to do. And then he decided to go away from the place. He joined the army. He joined the army and then willingly he went to Africa. See, it was at that time Spain was trying to establish colonies everywhere. So he went to Africa and into the wilderness of Africa. See, Europeans believed that Africa was a place where only uncivilized barbarians lived. So that's why they caught Negroes from Africa and they were brought to Europe and American countries as slaves. So he went to the wilderness of Africa after joining the army. And there, in a trench, met a glorious death. And he died in a trench war. He died while fighting those people. And he had a very glorious death. In those times, people believed that you will have a heroic death if you die for your country. So he died for our country. And at the time of his death, he was grasping, holding the flag of Spain, holding the flag of his country, Spain. He died. And again, even in his death, he was calling out the name of his beloved Silver Maiden, Laura. So, whispering the name of Laura, he had a very, very brave death. So, Gonzalo wanted to create a very good impression in front of Laura. He wanted to give her an impression that he has never forgotten her. So, he says, my cousin, that is the gallant horseman, went to Africa, died in a trench war for his country, holding the flag of Spain and whispering his beloved's name. What a great death he had. Donna Laura aside. What an atrocious lie! See, Laura very well knows that he is lying. So, she just tells us, there is a thought. See, how can he lie? See, when you are in love, you don't see any of those negative qualities of the lover or your beloved. No, love is blind. So, most of the negative qualities is hidden, or you do not see it. Only if the lovers enter into a wedlock, you will start understanding these things. Earlier, she never thought that her gallant horseman would lie. But now, in her 70s, she realizes that he was a great liar. So, atrocious lies. What a disastrous lie, he says. Godzilla, in an aside, I could not have killed myself more gloriously. So, he tells the audience, this is his thought. No, I have given myself a great death, a heroic death. And again, this must have created a great impression in the mind of this lady, my Silver Maiden. And how can I kill myself better than this? I cannot. This was a glorious death I have given for myself. And Laura, you must have been frustrated by the calamity. So calamity is the cousin's death. And she's asking Godzilla, you said it was a cousin, right? And you must have been taken aback, you must have been disturbed a lot by this calamity, by the death of your own cousin. Godzilla, yes indeed, Senora, as if he were my brother. You know, he was almost like a brother to me. So, I was thoroughly devastated. I presume, though, on the contrary, that Laura in a short time was chasing butterflies in garden, indifferent to regret. But you know, I don't think that Laura was unhappy about that. Soon after the gallant horseman has gone away, I feel Laura might have been chasing butterflies. Chasing butterflies is nothing but enjoying oneself. It's an idiom which means enjoying yourself. So Laura might have been enjoying herself in the garden, and I don't think she regretted. Because of her, the gallant horseman had to fight a duel with the merchant. And I don't think that she ever regretted that. And she was not, unhappy as well. But I was really sad because my cousin was almost like a brother to me. And see, Laura is replying, no, senor, no. She is not ready to accept that. She says, no, senor, sir. She never forgot the gallant horseman. She could never enjoy herself after that incident. You know that? Gonzalo. It's a woman's way. So he generalizes the situation and says, usually women are like that. They fall in love and something will happen to their lover, and they are least bothered about it. They are enjoying their happy lives later. And women are usually like that. And now Laura says, even if it were women's way, the Silver Maiden was not of that disposition. Disposition means character. You are wrong, senor. The Silver Maiden, Laura, was not of that kind. She was never of that kind of character. See, some women might have done such things. Some women might have been behaving in that way. But Silver Maiden was not like that. She really loved her gallant horseman. You know what happened? I will tell you what happened to Laura. My friend awaited news for days, months, a year, and no letter came. My friend, that is the Silver Maiden, Laura, has been waiting for one letter from her lover. And for days and months and years passed, and not even a single letter she received from him. One afternoon, just at sunset, as the first stars were appearing, she was seen to leave the house, and with quickening steps went her way toward the beach. The beach where her beloved had risked his life. She was so dejected and devastated after the duel. She found that her gallant horseman has gone somewhere. She does not know anything about him, and he has not even written letters. And she was so unhappy that almost after a year, one day, when the first stars were appearing, that was in the evening, she just left her house without anybody seeing her. And you know what she did? She went to the beach. And why did she select the beach? Because it was on the beach that the duel was fought. And why was the duel fought? The duel was fought for her. So her beloved, her lover had risked his life for her. She went over there. And then what she has done is, she wrote his name on the sand and then sat down upon a rock, her gaze fixed upon the horizon. First thing that she did was, she wrote his name on the sand in the beach. And now this refers to a belief among the fishermen folk. So it was believed that, during those times, lot many fishermen folk would go, and there was no guarantee when they would come back. If the sea was rough, sometimes they would drown themselves in the sea. So if at all the fisherman has gone, and if they have not come back for a long period of time, just to give themselves a positive thought, the people of those fishermen community would write the names of the fishermen on the sand. So once the name is written, if it is washed away by the sea waves, they believed that the man is dead. The man who has gone to the sea is no more. Suppose the name on the sand is not washed away by the waves. That gave them a positive feeling that the man is alive, he's safe somewhere, definitely he's going to come back. So in order to boost themselves, and again, don't think that they will write the name so close to they'll write the name a little upper side of the beach. So Laura also did the same thing. She just wanted to know whether her gallant horseman was still alive, because he was searched for by the authorities. So she wrote the name on the sand, and then she climbed a small rock and she was sitting there. She was looking at the horizon, and if you sit and listen to the sea waves for a long time, naturally you feel some sort of sadness feeling inside your heart. She was thinking all the time about her lover. The waves murmured their eternal threnody. Threnody is nothing but a song of sadness. So waves were lashing, and the sound of the waves so monotonous, repeating itself, and that created that filled her heart with despair and sadness, and it was a kind of sad song for her. And slowly crept up to the rock where the maiden sat. Evening it will be usually high tide, and when it is high tide, the level of the sea will rise. So she was sitting on a rock. So it was the high tide time, the stars were there, she was looking at the sky, she had written the name of her lover on the sand. The waves sang a song of sadness to her, and finally they just came to the rock where she sat, and she was taken away. The tide rose with a boom and swept her out to the sea. So she was just carried away by the waves to the sea. Probably she did not know swimming, or when it is at night time, nobody could see her, nobody can find her, and she drowned herself in the sea. It was an action of suicide. So in the thought of her lover, she gave her life to the sea. So she has again woven a wonderful story in order to tell him that, I never forgot my lover till the end of my life. Good heavens! See, this is a response from Gonzalo. My God, I cannot believe that this happened. Because he knows very well who is sitting beside her is the same Laura who has committed suicide. Laura, the fishermen of that shore who often tell the story, affirm that it was a long time before the waves washed away the name written on the sand. So you remember what I have told you, what is the belief of the fishermen? If the name is not washed away, the man is alive. The fishermen used to say, Laura died immediately. The same night Laura was carried away by the waves and she drowned herself. But the name that she had written on the sand was still there. So who died first? It was Laura who died first, and Gonzalo was still alive at that time. So she just wanted to prove that she loved him more than he loved her. So I gave away my life for you willingly. And your name was still on the sand. After lot many days, the waves washed the name away. Which means you died in a trench for after a long time, after my death. You will not get ahead of me in decorating my own funeral. So Laura says, I have created a beautiful funeral for me. You will never get ahead of me. She is trying to compete with this old man. He has created a heroic death for himself. She also wanted to have a heroic death for herself. So she says, my story is much better than your story because I gave my life for you, whereas you died for your country. Though in death you whispered the name of your lover, it was I who died first. No, Gonzalo in an aside. She lies worse than I do. So Gonzalo is realizing that she also is a very nice liar. So how can she lie like this? Poor Laura. Laura exclaims for herself. Poor Laura. All sympathy for Laura. Gonzalo. Poor Gonzalo. So Gonzalo is all the more sympathetic towards himself. Laura, I will not tell him that I married 2 years later. So now Laura just says, what really happened? Did I die? No. I waited. And later, 2 years I waited. After 2 years, I married another person and I went away. So you just think the love they still remember, the romantic love that they had for each other, the first love of Gonzalo and Laura towards each other, that still remains. But without any pang in her heart, she married somebody later. But she says, I don't tell him. I don't want him to realize that I'm a married woman. Gonzalo. In 3 months, I ran off to Paris with a ballet dancer. And see what Gonzalo has done. He fought the duel. He risked his life for Laura, the Silver Maiden. But what happened? Soon after, in 3 months, he went to Paris, ran off to Paris with a ballet dancer. So which means he was so happy to enjoy his life. Within 3 months he forgot Laura. He understood that he cannot come back to Valencia. Why should you be in sadness thinking about somebody who has loved some time back? No, you have to enjoy your life. So he started enjoying his life. He ran off to Paris. Paris, the center of art. Paris, the center of fashion. Paris, the center of enjoyment. He lived happily ever after. So it is here that I would like to stop for today. Both the Silver Maiden and the gallant horseman, they discussed their love affair. So they just wanted to create a good impression in the mind of the other. So I'll stop here, and in the next class we will discuss what happened to their relationship. Do they recognize each other? Do they speak to each other? Does Gonzalo tell Laura that I am Gonzalo? Let's see what happens. The last part, the last session of a Sunday morning will be dealt with in the next class. Thank you.